Hello, everybody. Good morning and afternoon. My name is Joshua Cortez, and I am with Therap Services, and I'm here with my colleague, Catherine.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Today, we're going to talk about using devices and connectivity when it comes to Therap. First up, what we wanted to discuss was the types of devices that are commonly used with Therap. We've seen a large shift over the years in changing of who has been or what people have been using to access their app. If you go back at least 5-6 years ago, the largest amount of devices that we had was desktop computers. It was very common to see a desktop computer in every home, in every program, and folks would have to walk over either to the desktop in the house or the desktop in a computer room in order to do their documentation. We started seeing a shift that started going into using laptops as well, as they are pretty portable. So now you're in a place where you have a portable person that needs to do their documentation from either their desk, then move over to individual's home or things of that nature. Then a few years back along came what we call a Chromebook. The Chromebook is still a very good option to use. It's basically a laptop, but a much cheaper version of a laptop. So where a typical laptop can cost you $200 to $300 at the very bottom level, a Chromebook you can get for maybe $120 at the cheapest. Very good option because it gives you access to internet. Does not run with your typical Windows or Mac. If you do that, it runs basically off Google. So you don't have that full functionality. However, you only really need the internet to access Therap, so therefore it's a really good option because you can always jump on Google Chrome and then get in there and begin your documentation, and really good option for mobile folks. It's very cheap. In the past few years, you've also seen now where a lot of folks are beginning to use tablets. Different types of tablets out in the market. You have your cheaper options with your Android, where you can easily get something about $100 for a pretty decent size. And then you also have things like the Apples with the iPads and things of that nature. Those are obviously are a lot more expensive. So definitely, you might want to think of cost, but there are very, very big reasons to go with Apple, especially with the capabilities of locking, which Catherine will get into later on, of having overall master control of the tablet, which Catherine will discuss as well later on. Another thing that's been coming very popular lately has been the Amazon tablets. You have your Fire tablets and things of that nature, where a lot of folks are using these. I do need to give one quick warning when it comes to your Amazon tablets. Typically, Amazon tablets, they do run as an Android. They don't run off of Google's Android. They run off the Amazon. So you don't have the option of the Google Play Store, which is where you'd get the Therap app if you are interested in using the app. However, if you do use the browser, you'll have a fully functioning version of Therap within your browser, and then you'll be good to go there. However, if you are interested in the app, the one thing you must know with that and using Therap's mobile app is that you would actually need to do what they call side loading of the app in order to use. The Therap app will work with an Amazon tablet. The only difference is you will need to side load those on, since you can't get it from the Amazon store. One thing you want to keep in mind with that is you will also need a side load every time the Therap app has an update as well. So we do have an option there. If you are interested in that, we do have a way to access the latest Therap app on our help and support site, which we can show you guys later on. When you have, now that we just discussed the Amazon tablet, and I want to get a little bit more into the mobile discussion, and using your mobile phone, and then a lot of things between Android and Apple. A lot of folks have, their preferred method, and that's what a lot of folks use. However, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have regarding that. If you want to type that in your question box there in your control panel, we're more than happy. If you wish to add anything to the discussion, please go ahead. One of the major differences is obviously price-wise. When you do have Android versus Apple, typically your Androids are far less expensive than an Apple device, except for maybe your Samsungs and higher end. But as long as you do have an Android device, a tablet is really good for documenting, especially on the go. When you're in your residential, you'll have folks. I've had folks. I in my old agency before coming to work at Therap, I actually purchased tablets, which I kept in the med cabinet and which were only for the MAR. So those tablets basically became my med books. As they were so cheap, I got them around $100 with a warranty. So you can easily have one just for a specific thing, but they do let you be mobile. They let you walk around. A lot of folks really like the speech to text features. I've seen many agencies who have their direct support folks just talk into their device and it'll write out their note for them. So, obviously with any technology, you do need to make sure you proofread what your device is writing, as sometimes it'll get a voice wrong. But for the most part, I would say they're actually really good, and I'd be more than happy to give you a demo of that once we actually show you the Therap app later on here. Does anybody have any questions at this time? All right, no questions. Cool. Catherine?
Okay, so we're going to look at some different setup options. And this is a common question that we get asked a lot when we're doing training and implementation. What sort of devices do we recommend? And really the answers that we can give is that we don't really recommend any specific device. As Josh said, Therap can be accessed anywhere that you can access the internet. So it's really going to be up to agency preference. And then of course, looking into cost options. But we can give some optional setups for your devices. As Josh stated, typically what we were seeing is a desktop, laptop computer, or tablet set up via Wi-Fi only. So when you're looking at this, this is a device that's typically going to be owned by you as the agency. And then multiple users are going to be logging in daily from the device to do documentation. So again, either a desktop or a laptop computer or a tablet that's connected to the internet via Wi-Fi only. A bonus of this type of setup is that it is an agency-owned device. You can control the usage of the device. It is also going to have an IP address that's going to show pretty consistently for documentation. And when you're looking at IP addresses in Activity Tracker, you can see really clearly when you're looking through your Activity Tracker if there's an IP address that pops out. So, if you're looking through to see if somebody's doing documentation within your location, you're going to see that consistent IP address. And then if there's a different IP address in there, somebody was doing documentation maybe where they weren't approved to do documentation. Again, the agency is going to have control over the usage of that device. You're going to have control over whether somebody can access other areas of the internet, whether it's just going to be used for Therap, and then what else they can do on that device. So I can speak from my personal experience at my previous agency. When we first got Therap, I had desktop computers set up for staff to do documentation on. I quickly decided that it was a little too much access for them to have. They didn't need everything that came with a desktop computer. We did move to laptops for some portability options, and I had put those on movable carts so that they can take them to different places in the building for documentation. But really, what I found worked out the best was just having a simple Chromebook. And as Josh mentioned, there's not much extra you can do on a Chromebook, so there's less ways that your staff can kind of get into trouble with those devices. So there's options to have, just the Chromebook option, log into Google Chrome on the Chromebook, and then do documentation straight from the browser. If you have a device that's going to be shared by multiple people, you're going to have to make sure that you're stressing that users need to remember to log out of that device, out of their Therap account when they're done doing documentation. We don't want them just thinking that closing the browser is going to be okay. We want to make sure that they're actually logging out of their accounts so that their coworker behind them does not do documentation under their name. Another tip there is to make sure you're disabling any password storage in browsers. Depending on what browser you're using, there's different directions for that, so that's easy to Google depending on your browser usage. But go in there and make sure that there's no password storage, that your staff's passwords are not being saved onto that shared device. You may also have an option to keep that device in kiosk mode. So basically, this is a mode that's really simple. You're controlling the look of the computer or that device and then saying this is the only thing you can do on this. So kiosk mode, if you've ever seen a computer at a hotel, those are going to be set up in kiosk mode. Basically going to one area, so if it's just access to the internet, they can have access to that browser. Now, that's not necessarily going to stop them from using the internet for other browsing, but you can keep it in kiosk mode just in case there is a computer that you don't want anybody, for example, doing a file search through. Okay, so that is one suggested setup. Another suggested setup would be for mobile devices that are owned by the agency. So if you're having your staff using cell phone devices that are owned by the agency, make sure you're going to have a policy for usage in place. And we do have a sample policy that we will show at the end of the webinar. And make sure that it's really clear if the device should be used for personal use or not. So again, just making sure that there is a policy outlined so that the staff who are using that mobile device know exactly what they should be using it for and when they should be using that for documentation. Another setup that we also commonly now see are mobile devices, but these are staff personal devices. This is really common in agencies who are providing home-based services, especially when we're accessing Therap through the mobile app. If we're doing things like checking in and checking out for scheduling, a lot of the time staff are using their own personal device. So I would just suggest here to make sure that you do have a usage policy in place. A lot of agencies do a reimbursement for use data. We do have a sample policy that we'll show at the end of the webinar here, just giving a sample. If you're expecting a staff to use their own personal device, it might be wise to offer some sort of stipend. You're also going to want to make sure that you're checking your state laws. A lot of states have different laws for, do you have to reimburse somebody who's using their own personal phone, etc. Make sure within your policy as well that you are including proper times for documentation. As this is somebody's personal device, you obviously can't control the usage of the device in its entirety, but since they are doing documentation for your agency, you want to make sure that they are documenting while they are clocked in. So just having that within the usage policy that your staff will sign will make sure that that's very clear for them. Okay, I'm going to pause here at the app to see if we have any questions.
I was in the middle of answering a few there, Catherine. A couple of questions quickly. There was one that's asking about static IP addresses. That's entirely up to you if you wish to create static IPs within your agency. Some folks do that, some folks don't. you do have that ability. Another question here was regarding kiosk modes. They will see the app, however, when they need to acknowledge an ISP, which will make them go to the web. There are certain softwares out there that will give you the ability to have multiple places where you can go in kiosk mode. So you can switch between the Therap app and your browser. You can also lock down your browser where it can only go into Therap. So you have quite a few options there, and then most softwares will help you out with that there. For those that are set up via Wi-Fi, how does staff get access to sign on to a specific Wi-Fi if the tablet's locked down? Once again, that's part of the same thing there, where you can do that within your device there, and then depending on which software you use. Can you prevent downloads? It is possible to prevent downloads. There are certain softwares that will allow you that. So if you are using certain softwares for kiosk modes and things like that, you also have security software that allow you to prevent downloads. Just keep in mind, if this is also a personal phone, then they won't be able to download their stuff as well. Types of security measures do companies put on devices? That's a great question. That's entirely up to you. You want to look at security and what does security mean to you. Some folks always have something where they can easily wipe their device if it is lost or stolen. And that's a big major key, especially with Apple stuff, where you do get that ability to control your devices from your master location and wipe anything at the click of a button. And then the downloads thing, answered there. Nothing built into Therap. No, there's nothing built into Therap. The only thing that you can stop is the exporting of Excel searches. Recommendations for software for kiosk mode. Catherine, do you have any recommendations? I do not.
I do not. I know that's a Google search you can form. I don't have anything specific. From my previous experience, I definitely did download some software to control what other areas of the internet staff could access. So kind of putting that lockdown on the internet itself, saying you can, for my staff, I had basically that you could go to Therap and my agency's homepage, and that was it. And that'll kind of prevent, other usage of the computer for things like Facebook, etc. That shouldn't be done on work time.
Thanks, Catherine. Any other questions out there before we continue? Great. Next thing we're going to talk about is looking at the Therap app. So I'll go ahead and share my screen in a minute, but I did want to let you guys know we do have an app for you guys to use if you wish. Available for Android and iOS. And currently our modules that we do have available are the T-Log, as you see on your screen now, the ISP data module, the MAR, we have our scheduling, and then we have password reset. Catherine did mention is PHI safe, which I'll mention a couple things within there that are PHI and then how that applies. So let me go ahead and share my device now. Okay. Here I have my mobile device there. Just wanted to show you quickly if you were interested. You do have the option of the Therap app. You can go into your Google Play Store or your Apple App Store. You can search Therap and then you'll see the Therap app there. Just keep in mind there are things for purchase within here. Well, not within the app rather, but if you wish to use certain features of the app, you will need to talk to your local business development / sales folks, and then they'll go ahead and help you out there. But you can, once you do purchase and we do turn that on for you, you can download that information, download the app there and use. Before I get into the actual app, I did want to talk about using Therap in your browser. You do have the ability to jump on your browser as I am now. Here I am in my Google Chrome. and you can actually go in and log into the system as you would on a computer. Here's my dashboard here. It is a little bit much there, but you can always zoom in. And one thing we're working on, and which we're really focusing on here, is, as you'll see, we're changing the look of a lot of pages in Therap, and we're going module by module. You'll have things like the T-log and the GER and other things, health tracking you'll see soon, things of that nature. And the reason why we're changing the look is because so many folks are using mobile technologies and mobile browsers, that you now have the ability with our new user interface to make that look a little bit more mobile friendly. So if I jump into a new T-log here, you'll see I can jump in here. I can do a search. As you can see, my new user interface allows me to search a whole lot easier. And then here's my T-log. So you'll see everything is condensed down to fit within my phone. So now I can come in here, choose my types, choose my notification levels, easily type in a summary and your description. And then you can do the rest of the things. And you have a full mobile view within your actual Therap browser with no need to purchase anything in addition. So now what I'll do is I'll jump into my actual Therap app here, and I'll show you a couple of things that we do have. And I'll go ahead and log in. So here's our mobile dashboard here. Here you'll see all the things you have available to you within the mobile site. So if I go T-log, it's actually going to take me to my to-do tab where I can come in here and view any T-logs that I have to read. You can sort them by high, medium, and low. And then you can also create a new T-log here for your individual. One thing we did have on our PowerPoint there that you saw was PHI safe. And one of the things here is anywhere in Therap where you do have the option for attachment. So you have photos, you have signatures, you have all that awesome stuff. This is actually not saved onto your device. It is actually saved straight to Therap. So you don't have to worry about if you do attach a photo to a T-log or an ISP data where you'd come in here, take a picture of an individual, you don't have to worry about that picture being on the device. It goes straight into Therap and only viewable within the system. If I jump back to my dashboard here, you'll see you also have the option of treating ISP data in the system. And then I know that was one of the questions there, so I can run through that one real quick. You have a search feature just like there within the browser version where you can go ahead and document that stuff there. And then here's my ISP data within the Therap app. I can enter begin time, end time. You can use your geolocation to get your exact coordinates via Google Map there. And here you have your location. You can add your task scores here so you can see everything. Here are all your tasks. You can set your scoring, and then you can go down the line there. A couple extra additions you do have with the Therap app here, you do have the option to take a photo and a signature. So if you require a signature verification, you do have that ability to add a signature, and then your phone becomes a signature pad there where you can go ahead and put in your signature. One of the features I wanted to talk about, and I'll put that here in my comment, was the speech to text feature. So if I did turn that on within the device here, oops, gotta agree to that. Here you can go ahead and say your note, and Therap and your note will enter into the system. Probably want to do a spell check there as it said that I said the word Jerry. But as you can see here, you do have the ability for speech to text if you do enable that for your device. A couple other options you have is our mobile MAR, so you can actually do your medications from the mobile app. And then I can come in here and then I will go into last month because I didn't have one. So here you can see you have your meds broken down by time. I have it broken down by my 8 a.m. meds, my noon meds, and my 5 p.m. meds. Then you'll see how many meds are to be given at that time. So I can easily click on there. Choose a medication. You'll still have your drug details where you have your picture of your medication. Automatically does your documentation in detail mode. So if you do have comments, you can put in your comments here. Are there any questions regarding the app here? I think you got them all right, Catherine.
Actually, we have a bunch of mobile questions here. Let me go back up to Josh, do you know if we're going to have the ability at some point to acknowledge ISP programs within the mobile app?
Yes. I don't have a date on that yet, but the answer is yes. Eventually. Any other questions we can address?
I'm not sure if you've seen an Apple device. I don't. I'd have to do some testing on this one. Why does the new T-Log from Apple device not have the staff reporter option?
I'd have to look at that on an Apple device. I don't have one, but I can definitely take a look there and get with our team on that.
Josh, any notes about two-factor authentication with the mobile app?
You can use two-factor authentication with your mobile app, yes. We don't have a fingerprint option. However, there is two-factor authentication where, just like within the system. So depending how you use it, if you use Google Authenticator or something of that nature, you can bounce back and forth. So if I jump into my apps here, I do have Google Authenticator. And then here you'll see your two factors here.
And then just to stress again that any photos taken within the Therap app itself, so either in ISP data or within T-Logs, those photos are going to be stored only within the Therap system. They are not going to be saved onto the individual's device, so you don't have to worry about somebody needing to go back and delete those photos. But only photos taken within the app will have that feature.
Correct. And then the last thing I'll say regarding our mobile app is the one thing that is for free, and if you have this role, you can actually download the app at any time and begin using it, is our password reset feature, which makes it really handy to reset somebody else's password on the go. If you click on password reset, all you have to do is click on the person's password which you wish to reset, and then go ahead and assign them a new password. And then you just change their password. So feel free to use that if you wish, and if you do have the password reset role within Therap, feel free to download the app and you can use that there. Any other questions? Awesome.
Okay, let me go ahead and grab screen control back really quickly. Okay, so thanks, Josh. That was an awesome overview of our mobile app. If anybody is interested in more information on that mobile app, please let us know and we will get you in contact with the right person. Last thing we're going to talk about today before we go over any questions, or if you guys have any suggestions for usage, is we're going to show some sample policies. This is another thing that we're very commonly asked. We do have 2 sample policies. I will share these with you in the handout section of the GoToWebinar, so feel free to use these. Feel free to modify them for your agency-specific rules. So we do have a sample user device policy and a sample agency device policy. So let me grab those really quickly here. So first we'll look at our personal device policy. So this is going to be something that you would have in effect if somebody was using their own personal device for documentation. And you can see here that this one does include a stipend amount. So this is just a sample. Again, you can change as need be. But in this scenario, this person is going to be getting a $40 per month stipend. I have seen agencies who have differentiated between their full-time staff and their part-time staff. Full-time staff would maybe get $40 a month for a stipend, and the part-time staff would get $20. So different options there for how much money you're going to reimburse. And again, that's for usage of their personal device, for basically for the data that they would be using while documenting. So again, just a couple of sample rules in here. I'll just point out some. Making sure that the device is going to be turned on during scheduled work hours, and that, phone calls, if this is something that's part of rules, that phone calls from other employees have to be answered. Making sure that the bill, sorry, let me highlight this better here. Making sure that the bill is always paid and that the phone should not be discontinued or deactivated. So that is a good stipend to put in your policy. If you're paying somebody an amount for reimbursement of use of their device, you want to make sure that their device is actually usable. So making sure that they have that phone bill paid, that it's current, that the phone is not deactivated or disconnected. Understand that any phone text data plan from the phone provider, you need to have that in order to complete job duties. So just making sure that they have a proper phone plan so that they can complete those job duties. Always important to not include or to not download any protected health information, so no downloading of any PHI onto a personal device. And again, by using that Therap app as opposed to using the Therap in the web browser, you're going to have that PHI protection within the app itself. Good as well to make sure that your staff have some sort of locking or encryption on their device. So even just having, whether that be the fingerprint code or whether that be a code to put in to get into the device, so that if they lose or misplace their device in some way, somebody can't just pick it up and use it. Now, a lot of people already have this on their phone, but if they're going to be using their phone for documentation, definitely something that I would want to make sure my staff have in place. Making sure GPS is enabled. So if you're using the Therap app and you're collecting that location information, whether that be through scheduling EVB or whether that be through ISP programs, want to make sure that that GPS is turned on just so that you can see where they're doing their documentation from. So as Josh just showed you, from ISP data, you can collect that GPS stamp, and certainly from your check-in, check-out scheduling EVB, you can collect that GPS location as well. Making sure that any work-related requests are responded to in the right time. So just a couple of housekeeping things here. Requesting that staff have some sort of antivirus on their phone. So there are antiviruses that you can download on your phone, and those can run, and just make sure that nothing, any kind of virus was downloaded onto a phone. Okay, and then again, while Wi-Fi could be used, you want to make sure that staff are understanding that they should not be using any public free hotspot Wi-Fi. So if it is Wi-Fi, it should be something that's a secure Wi-Fi connection. I definitely don't want to be walking into a Starbucks, for example, hooking up to that Wi-Fi and then doing my documentation from that Wi-Fi. In that case, I would want data used for those work-related issues. So just having that understanding in there that yes, Wi-Fi is a great option, but it has to be a secure Wi-Fi. And then just a reiteration at the bottom of the policy that you're accepting this stipend of $40 per month in this example, and that you agree to the terms above, and then have signatures. Okay, so this is something that we'll see at agencies, and actually this personal sample device policy is something that we send out to any new users. So again, I will put this within the handout section of the webinar so that you all have a copy of that. This is a new policy that we sample that we just created here. So again, use this as needed, but please make changes as need be. And this is a sample agency device policy. So this is when you're allowing somebody to use a device that is owned by the agency. Now, whether you want to make this something that everybody signs, no matter what type of device they're using at their agency, or if this is just something that you want to make sure users are signing when it's a device that's mobile. So something that they're taking out of the building and they're doing documentation on because they're going out to do documentation in the field or whatnot. This would be a great policy to have in place. So again, this is any cell phone or tablet owned by the agency that's being used by the employee. So sort of similar rules here, make sure that you're documenting during your scheduled work hours, answering phone calls if needed, if that's part of the policy. An option in here, do you want that person to be using this device for any personal reasons? So just make that really clear within the policy that somebody is signing. If you do not want them to be using the device, and if it's a cell phone for personal reasons, then make sure they understand that that is highlighted from the beginning. So that would include phone calls, text message, and data usage. Again, no downloading of PHI onto the device. Same with the passcodes, making sure that that is in place. It might be good to also include that if the device is lost or stolen, make sure that's reported immediately to the proper supervisor. Since it is an agency-owned device, you guys want to make sure that if this is something that's lost or stolen, this is something that you could possibly track depending on the device. You just want to make sure that your staff are telling you right away. Also, any issues with repair. So while it's your agency-owned device and you control that, you are going to be responsible for any repair or replacement of the device. Maybe something else you want to outline with staff where that line comes in, where it's agency responsibility and then staff responsibility. So that might be something to dive a little deeper into within number 6 here. GPS should always be enabled. Making sure that documentation, if you're using that Therap app, is done mostly within the Therap application and not within the mobile browser for those safety reasons. Making sure that any work person's information via voicemail, text, etc. is responded to promptly. Again, with antivirus. And then again, importantly on number 12 here, that while you can use the Wi-Fi, make sure it's a secure Wi-Fi. So really just having a conversation with staff so that make sure they understand what the difference between a secure Wi-Fi location and an unsecured Wi-Fi location. Everybody, of course, always wants to be connected to Wi-Fi so they're not worrying about their data usage, but we want to make sure that that's a safe usage of that Wi-Fi. So remember that data can always be used if no secure Wi-Fi is available. And then again, just a signature below stating that they understand the policy and that they're going to follow the rules on the policy. Okay, so 2 sample devices here. Josh, any questions while I put these into the Hangouts section of our webinar here?
No, the only question we had was regarding the check in and out feature, and that is part of our scheduling module. The other question we had was regarding activity tracking and whether you're able to tell if someone was logged in from the app. Yes, you can. You can tell someone was logged in from the app. It will say they logged in via the Therap app. You also have the ability to show whether they logged in from mobile browser or a web browser. And I can definitely show that via activity tracking as well.
Okay, both of those files are in the handout section of the webinar. Please feel free to download those if need be. But use those as a template for any of your device policies. Again, if anybody has any questions or if anybody has any stories they'd like to share or how you're dealing with any policies or device issues at your agency, we'd love to hear them.
And in the meantime, I can go ahead and share my screen to show you guys how the activity tracking will look. All right. So here I am showing my Therap screen. I'm in the same account I used to log in there. So if I go into my admin tab and into activity tracking, I'll just choose today's date. All right, so here under, if I make this smaller a little bit, here you'll see that I downloaded via Therap Android, and then it'll give you your device. Here you'll see where I downloaded via my computer. And if I jump in here, if I actually do a new search and then just search for login for today, I can probably get a lot better data there. Perfect. So here's where I logged in via the app. Like I said, here's I logged in via my computer. And you can see I'm on my Mac. Here's where I logged in from my app as well. Here's where I logged in from my browser on my phone. So as you can see here, I logged in via my Android device, and then it has my device name. And then you see that you have your Chrome there. So you can see all the different types of ways folks are logging in, whether it's your computer or your app or your browser on your phone. Any other questions on that? Data use, that's a great question. It all depends, and there's really no way to measure and say, well, a typical staff will use X amount of data. But the way you want to look at it is when you're in Therap, you go to a website when you go to make a new T-log, and that wastes barely any data. So that's the way you want to look at it. So every time you approve something or submit something, you're on another website. So it's very, very minimal on the data. There's really no, this is how much data. The question was asked, why do you want them to use the app and not the browsers on your work device? That's entirely up to you and your agency. Some folks prefer them to use the app, especially with being a little bit more secure in when they do attachments and things of that nature and photos versus your work device. But it's all boils down to you guys. Do you find most companies are supplying devices or letting staff bring your own device? That's actually a great question that that can go a lot of different ways. A lot of times it's folks think it's cheaper to have bring your own device and pay a stipend. But when you have the bring your own device, you don't get as much security as you'd probably like. When you do have staff bringing your own devices, you know, it's still their device, and they ultimately, you know, they want to, you know, you can say, well, if you bring your device, you have to put the security app on there, but at any time, someone can, you know, do a master reset on their phone or get a new phone on their own, and they won't have your software on it. Companies supplying devices is getting a lot cheaper nowadays. So that's a good option as well, especially with shared data. So many phone companies giving unlimited data as well, and practically giving devices for free is one thing there. So it can get very, for some folks, for me, I used to supply a stipend, and then I found that it was a lot cheaper for me to buy the devices. And I was saving at least $20 a device a month by me supplying a device. It also gave me the ability to have control over the device. So if I needed the device back, I can easily get it back. If I needed to lock it down for whatever reason, I can lock it down from my computer and all that awesome stuff. Does the app prevent downloads to the device? It depends where you're logging in. On the actual Therap app, there's nothing to download on the Therap app, so you can't download anything there. Doesn't mean it prevents it, but it does mean that there is no download available. Were you supplying phones, tablets, both, and or other? I was only supplying phones. One thing that we didn't talk about much was mobile versus tablet. Um, Nowadays phones are becoming pretty big, that they're almost the size of a tablet. Folks are used to documenting on mobile devices. So, a lot of folks are really looking into mobile versus tablets. Um, I did supply some tablets to some of my managers, only because, they needed the keyboard because they were doing a whole lot more typing and working. They were creating ISP plans and things of that nature. So they needed something that was easier to type. For your basic staff, it's entirely up to you, depending on how much work they're doing on the device. I think you take that into consideration. I am finding users download PDF of reports accidentally. Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit there. You are in Therap and you do have a download PDF button if you are in Therap on your mobile device, and you through your actual web browser, you do have the same functionality as you do in on a computer. So you definitely can download PDFs. So you just want to make sure you supply training and have a policy on that. If they want to view a report, it automatically downloads a PDF. Yep, definitely so. So I definitely suggest a lot of training and things like that.
And Josh, just to interrupt
What?
you real quick before you tackle that two-factor authentication question, another reason why you might want to have the app usage versus the web browser usage in your policy is specifically if you do have that access to ISP data, for example, on your mobile app device, and you want to collect that GPS location. So you're not going to be able to collect that specific GPS location within the web app, but you can collect, I'm sorry, within the web browser, but you can collect that GPS location information via the Therap app. So if that's something that's important and you want to make sure that your staff are documenting from a specific location, they will need to make sure that they're documenting from the app itself.
Totally. Last couple questions. Claudine there. What devices would you recommend for staff working in the community and just logging ISP data? It's a great question. You have tablet versus mobile is the first big question is, do you just want them to use that to document in the system? Or do you need to also contact that person via phone or text message or whatnot? Definitely want to probably kill two birds with one stone if you also need to communicate with them via phone. And then does two-factor work with apps like Google Authenticator? Yes, it actually only works with apps at this point. So your Google and your Microsoft authenticators, there are certain, we don't have an SMS option at the moment. Does two-factor work from PCs as well as the app? Yes. You can use your two-factor authentication on the PCs. You can get your Google Authenticator app and have that with you there when you're logging into the web version on a PC. Unless your question is, do you have an authenticator that works with PC within a PC? I'm sure there are a few options. Google, there's a lot of stuff on the Google Store within your computer there that I'm sure give you that option. But you also want to ask yourself how protected is that if you have your authenticator on the same device where you log in from. Especially when they're shared like a computer, a PC. Do you find that using the app or web browser from your mobile phone or tablet doesn't save? No, we've never had that issue. A lot of times folks will be in the system and their phone and they may miss a button when they're trying to push save or submit. So definitely I'd look at that option. But as long as you have internet connection, your device will save just like if you were on a PC. Will there be a Windows Store version of the app in the future? That's a great question. At the moment, no. Since Windows mobile platform is not as popular as the other two, we don't have the Windows operating system right now. Do I see that happening in the future? I would say it probably would depend how popular Windows phones get. But it's not a very popular operating system, and there are very, very minimal amount of phones that actually use it. Windows laptops, yeah, exactly. We don't have that functionality now. Any other questions there? All right, Catherine.
I think that's all we have today. If no one else has any questions, we thank you for joining us today. Again, check out those handouts within the handouts section for those sample device policies. And if no other questions, again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you guys have a great rest of your day.